So, I want to just talk briefly about the situation that we're in, the situation that we're all in. I want to talk seriously about it because there are so many people on YouTube, on social media, and on other platforms. There are so many coaches, so many gurus who are still sort of skirting around the issue, and they want to tell their respective audiences what they want to hear, but this channel's never been about that. This channel has never been about trying to figure out what people want to hear and then doing that. It would be good marketing, but it basically betrays my trust that's given to me, so to speak, as a teacher. And so what we want to start doing more of course, this channel's about living free. And we want to start giving it to you straight, so to speak. And I think I've been doing that, but I want to drive it home in a more impactful way. And you'll understand what I'm saying here as we go through the video. But I'm no longer going to be here to coddle people or to allow it to be a platform for, shall we say, crybabies and so on and so forth. Some of the greatest gurus like Krishnamurti, like Sri Ramana Maharshi and others, gave tough love to their students. And it's time for us on this channel, at least in some of the videos, to give you this tough love, to lay on this truth, to expose what the actual situation is so that you can know the urgency of it. Because a lot of people don't know the urgency of it. You see, it's urgent that you awaken to who you are. Now it's more urgent than ever. We don't have to go through news headlines to show you why that is. The situation in the world basically demonstrates its own exigency, if you will, if you understand what I'm saying here. What's the situation that we're in, first of all? Why do we need a way out? Why can't we just continue living life the way we've been living it? And many of us who are not on a spiritual path, who don't know interiorism or any other spirituality, we're just living life basically to keep up with the Joneses, basically to stay alive, basically to enjoy life. But to what end, ladies and gentlemen? We all know how it ends, unfortunately. We all know how life ends, and you can listen to a lot of the lectures of Krishnamurti. He told his disciples, death is there. And I tell you, death, deterioration, and termination is what is on this current film roll. If you don't have the understanding, if you're not committed to knowing who you truly are, guys, you just have to observe. And I began this channel 2 years ago. It's been a little bit over 2 years now, talking about the fact that we're completely empirical. Our base is rational. A lot of people say, well, you're not living in reality. We start from reality. We start from what we can observe. Of course, we know what we observe is not the ultimate. I talked about that a few videos ago, the simulation that we're truly living in. But in order to know that, you have to actually observe what is presented to your senses. And I don't have to go into all of science, all of physics, all of biology. What we're concerned about here in this video is our lives. Your life, my life. What is it? Have you ever asked yourself and contemplated, what are we doing here? What is this? Because it's really quite extraordinary if you look at it. Look just in your immediate proximity. There's a world there are objects, there is a communication and a contact between those objects. Just observe what you can in your immediate vicinity. We don't have to get very scientific. So what are some things that we can actually know about this existence just about observing? Well, just empirically we can see that there are a lot of things going on that have nothing to do with me as a person. And I use this term me as a person advisedly. If I define myself as a person, if I define myself as a separate entity that's enclosed by this skin, and even microscopically, this wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't know where your own skin ends and where the rest of the environment begins simply microscopically. We only know that by looking at the surface. But let's look at the surface now, because we're not dealing day to day with microscopes or scientific instruments. We're dealing with the surface that we observe. And everyone, almost everyone, is living on a surface level. In fact, Korzybski, who was a great philosopher early in the 20th century, who wrote the book General Semantics, he describes this as the human level of being. There are many different levels of being. There are levels above it, there are levels below it. In the human level of being, that's basically what we're living on. And that is the domain of the ego. It's what spiritual teachers call the ego. And we talked about this just a few videos ago when we were discussing Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth. He talked about the ego. And the ego is that thing which we see and define as a separate entity. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that separate entity has control of almost nothing. And what all of the great philosophies and spiritualities begin teaching you to do is demarcating those areas where you have control and where you have no control, and focusing your attention on the areas where you have control. But it makes sense that when we observe this reality and we see that there are a bunch of things going on that have nothing to do with us, we want to control those things for our benefit or for the benefit of the ego. But let's get down to brass tacks. Why do we want to control the outer? Because again, as we're raised and we're taught that there are certain things that are within our control, and we ought to control those, and we also ought to expand the sphere of our control through taking certain actions to control other things. But there's a tacit assumption here, and this assumption is actually unscientific. Why? Because, well, if you study the history of science, you'll know that the great Occam of the Middle Ages formulated what we call Occam's razor, that the fewer things that are said about something, that's usually the best explanation. Or the fewer hypotheses posited about something are usually the best explanation. Or even better said, the best hypothesis is that which says least about a thing and covers most of its essence. I hope you understand me just a little bit. So what we realize is when we go back, when we sort of peel away the onion of causes and go back to the root cause, what is the cause for me changing anything? Let's say that I want to get a job. So there is a system called a company, and I go to that system, and by inserting myself into that system, putting pressure on certain points, so to speak, perhaps speaking to the owner of the company, perhaps my brother knows someone in the company, and they could speak to them, I enter myself into that process, and I bring about some change on the outer. Well, why do I do that? Well, I do that because I want to make money. Why do I want to make money? Well, because I want to buy a comfortable house and have food and so on, be able to support my loved ones. Why do I want to do that? Well, because I want to be able to feel good about my life. And why do I want to do that? And what you get down to is the absence of inner turmoil. The reason you do anything is so that you can feel better. Abraham Hicks talks about this. The only reason to do anything is to feel better. Is there any counter hypothesis to that? Now, it's not always the case. In fact, a lot of times we do something to feel better and we end up feeling worse. So it's not always the case that we can perfectly predict that that thing will make us feel better. But when we undertake the action, we think that it's going to make us feel better. And of course, economics teaches this, that there is buyer's remorse, and our thought about something may not be the actual reality of what happens when we get that thing. So I buy a car to make me feel better, but I end up either getting bored with the car or I don't like something about the car. That's buyer's remorse. That happens often. But it does not change the fact that we do something to feel better. Now, with more logical thinking, we can make sure that that thing that we're doing will actually make us feel better. But can we go deeper? If we know that many things that we do not make us feel better, doesn't that make sense that we would more deeply think about what we're doing, first of all, and actually trace the cause and effect to see if it will make us feel better? And that's what your mind lab is for. That's what contemplation is for. That's what journaling is for, where you actually act out the scenarios. A lot of times, we're not really clear on what we want. And so when we get it, we figure out it's not necessarily what we want. But let's go even deeper than that. Why would you try to manipulate the outsides to feel better when there's a way to feel better without doing anything on the outer, which we've demonstrated a lot, and we'll demonstrate it again. And we're going to explain in this video what that is. And two, you don't even know what you want, guys. You don't know what you want. Even the desires that we talk about on this channel, where you actually attain the desire through manifestation, which is through going within and giving it to yourself, when it ultimately comes on this film roll, you don't even know all of the details of that. Neville Goddard talks about it in his works, where he says, when you attain everything that you want, there's always some aspect of that that throws something else off balance, so that then you have to come up with another solution. So it's a constant problem. And that's actually the spice of life. It's why you came, to come and solve problems, to sink your teeth into these problems. But if you're looking at it from the point of view of, I'm here and I'm going to take action on the outer to get what I want, you're bound to be frustrated and unhappy. That's why this world is suffering, ladies and gentlemen. That's why all of the religions say, turn your back on it, guys. We're going to tell you how to do that. That's why Buddhism says that this life is suffering. That's why Christianity says, be in the world but not of the world. That's why Islam says, do not become attached to this dunya. And I've noticed that so many of us, even in interiorism, even in manifesting, are using these modalities to get this world. And what you realize is that is ashes. If you're 40 years old, as Marcus Aurelius says, an intelligent person at 40 years old, I'm turning 40 in a few months, you've seen everything there is to see about life. So what's the conclusion here? So many people are asking, am I doing this right? And they're becoming attached to desires. I'm going to say something that may sound counterintuitive, but you'll understand it perfectly in the context of interiorism and in the context of actually living free. I know a lot of people aren't going to like this. Probably people are going to unsubscribe, but start today. Just experiment with it, ladies and gentlemen, maybe for 3 days, maybe for a month. Live without any desire. I'm going to tell you how to do this. Live even without any preferences. Live without any attachment to the outcome. Just see it as an experiment, ladies and gentlemen. And the great Michael Singer, who wrote this book called The Surrender Experiment, and I always recommend my deeper coaching clients, the people I've spent some time with, to read this book. And I recommend it for all of you who are deep on the spiritual path. Read The Surrender Experiment. Everything that you have to do, just tomorrow, guys, when you go to work or when you go to your family or whatever it is you do every day, tell yourself, right now, I'm going to have no attachment to outcome. I'm going to have no desire or preference. I'm just going to live each moment, and I'm going to surrender to whatever comes to me, and I'm going to be completely present. And I'm going to make sure that anything that passes before me becomes better for having passed in my ambit. I remember Jerry Hicks always said that, the husband of Esther Hicks, of Abraham Hicks. He said, anyone who dealt with me, I would want them to at least remain the same, if not become better, from having had a connection or a dialogue with me. So everything that comes to you, be completely present. Be in an attitude of observation. And that is the crux of this. No longer expect anything. No longer try to manipulate the present moment. Just be there and observe it. And be without preference. And come at it as an experiment. You see, like we said just now, you don't know what you want. There could be some new invention, and it creates a desire in you. You don't know about that new invention now. You want to be with this specific person. I get so many questions about the specific person. And when you're with that person, you get bored with them within a month, and you start hating that person. You don't know what you want because you don't know the future. What's the only thing you can do? So many things are happening on the outer that you have zero control of, the little you. Of course, knowing yourself as the ultimate, you have complete control. And that's where manifestation comes in. Incredible stories. People healing themselves. People healing others. People changing weather, guys. It happens all the time. People manifesting sums of money. But this has to happen by transcending that egoic self, that little self that tries to do everything directly. Vadim Zeland in Reality Transurfing talks about the direct aspect or path and the indirect path. And the only way to influence reality in any way that's going to make a huge impact, guys, is indirectly. The only thing that I can directly affect right now is maybe I can turn down the air conditioner and I can go walk into my room and get into bed. I have some food I could cook right now. These are very small workaday things. You can directly do them. God willing, right? Unless some impediment comes for that. But to build a multi-million-dollar company, to touch the lives of millions of people, that can only be done through the indirect method. And in order to, shall we say, affect this indirect method, you have to be in the vibration of that. And the only way to get into the vibration of that is to go into your imagination and feel the feeling of what it would be like if that were achieved, but without attachment to the outcome. Why? Because if you're attached to an outcome, you're expecting an outcome. And then you haven't achieved it, and therefore you're holding yourself in the vibration of not having achieved it. I hope you understand me just a little bit. So all of these classes on manifestation, all of these coaches telling you take these steps and you'll get it, that's all counterproductive, because by taking the step, you're holding yourself in the vibration of not having it. That's why so many people are not getting it. Now, many people do achieve results. And the reason why people achieve results is because eventually by practicing these steps, you will get into the vibration of having it. Sometimes. But if you're still attached to the outcome, and you're practicing these steps in order to attain something, usually you keep yourself out of vibration with it. If you do that, you can pass this entire outcome and not attain your desire. So it brings me back. What do I do in my day-to-day life? Javier, you say that we should embody who we want to be and what we want to be. How can I do that without having a desire? Here's how you do it, guys. So let's say you're going to work. You make your intention, I'm going to pass each moment of this, and I don't need to think. I just need to be in that moment. I need to open my heart, and I need to simply accept whatever comes before me. Action will arise, of course, but I'm not taking thought. The Bible says take no thought. As I do that, desires are going to come up, of course, and we know that that happens. Like Daniel in the lion's den, because I'm going to have a negative emotion or a very small, usually, disturbance telling me what I don't want. When I know what I don't want, I know what I want. It's in that moment immediately you stop desiring it by giving it to yourself. So, someone passes you and they say, F you. Let's just say, right? Someone flips you off on the highway. Immediately you go within and you revise that, guys, and you say, no, that person blew me a kiss. And if you feel disbelief or you feel, no, well, that didn't really happen, then you just observe that. What you're not doing is trying to force reality to conform to that. You already know that reality is that. I hope you understand me just a little bit. So it's less thinking and it's more being. And then you just direct your mind to that. I want to be on the beach. I don't think, oh man, I want to be on the beach. It would be nice if I were on the beach. I just immediately go there, guys, when I can in my imagination. I imagine that beach. I'm standing on that beach. My feet are in the water. I don't have to think. I'm just there. And then for the rest of the time, guys, I'm with people. I'm alone. I'm with my spouse. I'm just there. And I am completely centered in the moment, opening my heart. Now, negative emotions are going to come due to past experiences. I just let those flow through me. I observe them. And what you're doing, guys, is you're observing the observer. And what you realize is it's the observer who's you. It's not this body. It's not this name, Javier. It's not this set of desires that are all conditioned anyway. It is the observer. It is the true observation. It's not even the observer, because you can observe the observer. It is the observing. And then as you see yourself and know yourself as the totality, then, guys, your manifestation power starts to pack a punch. But what you do is you approach it as an experiment. You say, you know what? I don't even know what I want. Let's see what this day brings me. And then as things come up, you simply observe them. You imagine what it is you want to be, what you are. And then tell me, guys, comment to me how your lives have just taken off once you do this. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you find value in the videos, please do subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share the videos. I'm doing coaching and consulting calls as usual. I will put my email in the description if you'd like to work with me. So if you like these videos, guys, more coming very soon. Until very soon, have a wonderful weekend. This is Javier with The Real Javier Novoa bidding you a wonderful weekend.